My name is Amy Payne, and I'm here with Gary Vaynerchuk at tastingroom.com with a Q&A session directly from our Twitter feed.
Yay, Twitter.
For our first question, how does one defortify wine? I like the sweetness of port and fortissimo, but the alcohol content is a bit high. Other than settling for a Cab Merlot or Pinot Noir, any suggestions?
Do we have the names on this or no?
No.
Okay. No named Twitter person. Here's what I think you should be thinking about. For me, I would probably go with Petite Sirah. You know, when you look at Petite Sirah, especially if you can find a Petite Sirah in the 15.5, 14.7 alcohol on the label, you're going to get that sweetness of the fruit that a port brings to the table, but not that heavy, high alcohol. The other thing you could look at, which I think would really rock for you, is a Banyule, which is late harvest Grenache from the Rhone Valley. I'm a huge fan of that. To me, that is like the ultimate chocolate pairing dessert wine, and they tend to have lower alcohol content, a little less heat on the palate, and I think that would be a victory.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Second question, who is the Michael David Vineyard of 2012?
That's a good question. There's a lot of wineries that I think are spiking. I think when you really think of what Blackbird's doing, I just got to taste some of their Terrantes from Argentina. There's just something about the DNA of that organization and the wines they're producing. So I will go with the Blackbird Argentinian program.
Great. What is your take on the origins of minerality in wine?
Oh, I saw that one.
Does minerality exist? And what's your definition?
This is such a nerd question. I love this question. You know, when I taste rocks, like in wine. I've also tasted rocks as I've done.
Like licking them directly from the soil?
I've done some stuff with Conan O'Brien. You can Google it. I definitely taste minerality. I refer to minerality as that rock, crushed rock flavor. It's salt, right? You're tasting some of that salt nuance. I will never, ever, as a wine expert, claim that I'm heavier on the scientific aspect. I don't want to get into a scientific debate about does it exist. I taste what I call minerality in wines, and it's that cross-section of salt, rock, bluestone. If you've ever licked the bluestone, like I have, and that I highly recommend that you do, and I highly recommend that all of you do, you'll know exactly what it is. And so I taste it, and it's kind of chalky. I think we've all been in classrooms, that chalkiness, especially mixed in with salt, that's what I refer to as minerality. So it exists to me. It's kind of like, if I can taste it, it's real.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all subjective, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
It's art.
Yeah, agree. What advice would you give to marketing a small winery, sending to tastings, etc., or social media, guerrilla marketing? What do you think is the best tactic?
Oh, I like this question. This is more my wheelhouse than the science. I failed all my science classes. But I sold baseball cards during them. So to me, this is a very easy question. To me, when you're a small winery, I've been tasting some small wineries looking for my pack here at Tasting Room, some great ones, and I hear the quantities, 200 cases, 300 cases, 2,000 cases globally, and then I break it down, like it's only 24,000 bottles. And I get into this math of not understanding why wineries are not marketing one-on-one more. It doesn't take a lot of people for you to do business as a small winery. You think of yourself as a small winery that has 500 cases, 1,000 people can be your business if they're willing to buy 6 bottles each. And I think they waste their time on chasing the dream. Bevmo, big restaurant chain, all these things, when they don't realize that here's a marketing idea. Go to a wine restaurant that's relevant in your city, San Francisco. Go to San Francisco every night. Go out every night and go to wine restaurants and sit down and mingle and say hello to people. And I guarantee that you've got a list long enough to sell your business. The problem with most small wineries are they're in it for the wine and not for the business. And it takes the business to be in the wine business.
Exactly.
And so what I just told you to do in real life is something that I believe scales on Twitter and Facebook and other places. To me, not having a Pinterest board with pictures from your vineyard or your wine labels or other wine regions is insane, especially if you're looking for a female demo. To me, not going on twitter.com/search and searching the varietal that you sell, whether that's Roussanne or Rosé or Pinot Noir or Pinot Gris, and engaging with people as the winery is insane. It doesn't take a lot to build this business. Go out and find them. You have to go and take the customer on a one-to-one scale. They're not coming to you just cause.
Yeah. There's so many options out there. It's, really important to set yourself apart.
I think so, and I think here's the real answer. Here's probably the better answer. You should audit your own DNA and understand who you are as a person, and then bet on that in the platforms that matter. So if you're an introvert, you're not going to roll up on people at a wine bar and be like, hey, I see you're drinking some white wine. What do you like about white wine? That's going to be very scary.
But so social media might be better for
sure, behind the computer. That's right.
Yeah. Okay. What is what's the difference between the Food and Beverage World wine point score versus the Robert Parker wine scores?
The food and beverage, like literally the food and beverage scores? Yeah, so I guess they saw that from a wine offer we did the other day. The difference is food and beverage has a panel of people that are a little bit less known, and Robert Parker is, the iconic, there will never be a more powerful wine critic ever with social media and so many more voices. So you're getting a general point of view, whereas what I loved about Robert Parker and always feel that he was so great at was I literally, when I was buying wine in the early 90s through the mid 2000s on a daily basis for those 9-10 years, daily basis, when I would taste a wine, I would know it. I felt very comfortable that I had a chance to be a good Parker scored wine because his palate was so consistent. I didn't necessarily agree with it. He liked bigger wines than I did. I was more vegetal, he was more fruit driven. But I tasted a Barossa Shiraz and I was like, wait a minute, this has a chance to be a 93, 94 point Parker wine. And so his consistency and it being one person and him being very honest, I think the one thing that nobody ever talks about in a world where he commanded and dictated billions of dollars in economic power, he was shockingly authentic and real and not on the take. He was a human being. He probably liked this person more than that person, and he couldn't calibrate that. That was just EQ. But he was such it was and is such an honest man, and I commend him for that. So the difference is you have a very one person, very concise, standard, reliable scoring system versus something that I have less context for, that some of the ratings I've seen from them, food and beverage, have been up and down. And so for me, I had to pick through them more.
Now, coming from a standpoint of taking an average of multiple tasters, say you have 5 tasters on the panel, you tend to find that you're going to have average scores and not one wine tends to stand out over another.
Lack of a POV.
Yeah, because everyone has a different palate. So what do you think is, for the consumers, what do you think is more helpful? Having an individual taster that they can follow that's more similar along the lines of their palate, or more of a panel type tasting where not one individual has as much authority and say?
Number one, for context, because everything becomes vanilla in a panel.
Yeah.
I mean, I used Parker in reverse. Like the cabs from California that he didn't like as much, I knew were gonna have less alcohol and a little more Bordeaux-like in essence, and those were the ones I tried a lot. I like the straight POV. When I was at my height with Wine Library TV, people knew that I liked vegetables. Like if it had broccoli and snow peas, like I was gonna like that more than if it had plums or raspberries.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I want a strict POV that really enables me to create a barometer.
Good. Let's see. If you do not finish a bottle of wine, how do you like to preserve it? What do you think is the best way?
I'm a big 24-hour rule guy. I mean, I love the vacuum pump. It's a great $15 item. Everybody watching this should have one. That would be my way. But I'm kind of like, open the bottle, put the cork in it, leave it on the counter, drink it tomorrow. If not, cook with it day 3.
What about gas?
I'm clumsy. I've done it back in the day. I used to love it. Like, you put the little thing, it's like that really thin thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's rad. I like
nice
this. I like the sound. I don't know. I'm a little bit old school romantic on this one. Pop the cork in, leave it under the counter. If it's red, don't put it in the fridge. If it's red, put whites in the fridge. Fine, but even that, I love tasting white wine at room temperature. I'm kind of pop, drink. Next day, just from the cork on the counter. usually opens up. A lot of times I like the wine a lot better the second
Yeah,
day.
yeah.
And then day 3, if it's a great, profound, fully structured wine, it usually a lot of times stays whole. But I think a lot of wines fall apart by day 3,
Yeah.
and then I'll just cook with them.
Good. Well, a good alternative is our wines by the glass.
Well,
Then you don't have to waste wine on
that,
day
you know,
3.
under the context of tasting, I mean, like that has a whole lot to do with what I was excited about. I
Yeah.
mean, that's what I think is so revolutionary about this place, and it solves that problem, and just, you know, is so much better for the consumer, so much less waste.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I was excited as well. I'm a little hesitant to ask this question, but it was on Twitter. So, any ideas on the most aphrodisiac-esque wines? Is there such thing?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think when I hear that question, you know, it defaults right into like rosé champagne. There's something clearly romantic about bubbles. If you want to go more dude-oriented, in my younger days when I had a little bit of a different mentality, dessert wines can be very smart. They spike in alcohol. They spike in alcohol. They're delicious. You can consume more. There's some strategy dudes behind the dessert wine, but to me, I think this is more of a sparkling rosé. You know, Cava rosé. If you're trying to be romantic on a budget, I'm obsessed with sparkling wines from Spain. You know, Cava rosés can fall between like $12 and $20 a bottle and get very high quality. So the more polished version of me would like to say Cava rosé. The more like wink wink dude thing. You know, look at some dessert wines, late harvest Riesling. There's some good tricks out there.
For delivering wine and wines that are recently arrived to your house,
Got it.
do you let them rest before opening?
Bottle
Do you
shock.
believe in bottle shock?
I failed every science class I took. And I think that things in wine, and you've been around wine a long time, and I think you'll probably agree with me on this, a lot of things just become tradition and things that people believe in without proof. I kind of think of it like Nielsen ratings for TV. They're just accepted. In our world, it's accepted that if a wine is shipped, you gotta let it settle, and then you can drink it if it's a pristine wine. I've drank a lot of wine that's been shipped and bounced around. And how about when you like take your wine to a restaurant and you're in the suburbs and it like bounces in your car? Like, I think people are a little bit ridiculous about it. But I don't know the science, and I don't pretend to. I've really liked to take away all the douchebag wine things, and I feel like bottle shock could fall into that category.
Well, it depends on how old the wine is, because the older a wine is, the more
But do you have
sediment it's going to
respect?
have.
But,
Yeah.
but do we have sediment at the bottom of the bottle that then gets into the wine? But I've shipped a lot of wines, millions of bottles of wines in my career that had sediment. That those wines in those styrofoam containers are moving less than they are when you buy it at your store and drive it home.
Yeah, agreed.
And so, I think that there are very few people in the world that have scientifically tasted the same bottle of wine from the same origin, one being shipped across the country, one being stable, and done enough context testing with some real data behind it to tell you that bottle shock is real. Though it might have been done, and I'm thrilled if you tweet me and say, how about this report? I've never tasted a wine and said, bottle shock. And so because of that, I like to go with the way I live, and I don't feel like it's a major deal.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, I'm Gary Vaynerchuk at tastingroom.com. My name is Amy Payne. Thank you.